The Allen Line Company appreciates all of the dedicated carriers it takes to move loads across the U.S. Stay safe.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Scott Thompson.
Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. We'll cover a lot of ground over the next hour. After a news update here in just a moment, we'll log some time in the parking zone with Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. Tyson's been tracking the parking situation nationwide, as he always does, and noticed that the list of cities instituting truck parking bans continues to grow. He'll stop by with an update. Then Tyson's back in Studio A with S.J. Munoz and Ryan Witkowski of Landline Magazine to hand out roses to those who are doing right by truckers and raspberries to those who aren't in our latest installment of Roses and Razzberries. And finally, we'll close things out with a talk about artificial intelligence. Like any new thing that comes along, the bad guys have found ways to use it for their benefit. Aaron Phillips and Tim Storhoff of OIDA's IT department break down how cybercriminals are using AI to scam people out of money and what you can do to protect yourself. All that and more coming up on today's show. But first, the news with Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Scott. Multiple injuries are being reported after a truck crashed into a Texas Department of Public Safety office this afternoon. Fox News reports that more than a dozen people are reported injured. According to an article, the crash happened after an 18-wheeler that was being pursued by law enforcement drove into the building. A DPS official was quoted saying that the Texas Rangers are investigating and that a suspect has been arrested. California continues to be allowed to set more stringent vehicle emissions standards. This week, a federal appeals court upheld the state's Clean Air Act waiver. This allows the state to set vehicle emission standards more stringent than federal standards, but the fight against the waiver is likely not over. Monty Wiederhold is an OOIDA board member. He recently spoke on Fox News about the impact this will continue to have on the trucking industry, both inside and outside of California.
Oh, it's going to be catastrophic for our segment of the industry. 96% of the small fleets, or 96% of the industry is made up of small fleets like mom and pop, 1 and 2 truck operators. I have a 4-truck fleet myself, and obviously this thing is going to cost untold billions of dollars that we have no way that we're going to pay for. There's no infrastructure set up for it now. There is nothing about this law that makes any sense. And I mean, if these folks were watching this past winter when the people in Chicago with their Teslas that they couldn't get to the chargers or that they were froze up, multiply that times about 10. Because right now we currently have nowhere to park our trucks along the highway, just to, rest areas and truck stops to even sleep. So if this mandate comes in, if they go forward with this nonsense, we're going to be the supply chain crisis on steroids.
The federal lawsuit is just the latest challenge to California's Clean Air Act waiver. It's thought that a petition to the Supreme Court is likely next. A bill in Georgia that would address truck parking in the state has moved to the governor's desk. The bill includes a statewide freight and logistics implementation plan. The plan would span 20 years and include annual updates to the legislature on critical projects such as the widening of interstates and non-interstate arterial roads, intermodal and multimodal capacity improvements, and commercial vehicle parking and safety improvements. The Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association welcomes Georgia's State House action to address needed truck parking. Senate lawmakers voted 45-1 to advance the bill to Governor Brian Kemp. House lawmakers already approved it by a unanimous consent. In an effort to ensure the safety of road workers, Washington State is making some policy changes. According to an article in the Columbian, the department said it's tried to balance mobility and safety by doing things like scheduling road work to minimize inconvenience to drivers. The state DOT secretary now says he's directing crews to work during the day, take up an extra lane, or even close down roads if crews feel it's needed to be safe. The goal is to ensure that men and women who work for the Washington State DOT get home safely at the end of their shift. The number of roadwork crash fatalities in Washington doubled between 2022 and 2023, and nearly 800 people were injured in roadwork crashes last year. $888,000 worth of cocaine was found this week in a truck at the Rio Grande City port of entry. U.S. Customs and Border Protection said the seizure happened on April 8th after a CBP officer referred a truck hauling an empty trailer for secondary inspection. During that, officers used canines and discovered 28 packages containing a total of 67 pounds of alleged cocaine. CBP turned the narcotics, tractor-trailer, and driver over to a state and local high-intensity drug trafficking area task force for further investigation. 56 cases of pork with an estimated value of $12,000 were stolen recently in Philadelphia. WPVI reports the latest cargo theft happened on Wednesday night when a trucker was asleep in his cab. He reportedly felt a shake as thieves got into the trailer and made off with the meat. This latest cargo theft marks at least 37 reported in Philadelphia this year. A new truck arrestor ramp is now open in Virginia. This is the first for the state. The $5.5 million safety feature is designed to put the brakes on runaway big rigs and passenger vehicles descending Afton Mountain. The arrestor ramp system consists of 10 stainless steel nets arranged to safely stop vehicles as large as an 18-wheeler weighing up to 80,000 pounds, traveling up to 80 miles an hour. The first net is designed to stop a passenger vehicle. The ramp is located at US 250 at the Rockfish Gap Turnpike. A new heavy-duty truck manufacturing plant will soon be built in Mexico. The Volvo Group announced this week that in an effort to supplement its U.S. production, it will be building a new plant. The group said in a release the plant will provide additional capacity to support the growth plans of both Volvo trucks and Mack trucks in the U.S. and Canadian markets that will support Mack truck sales in Mexico and Latin America. 2026 is when the plant is expected to be operational. An interactive dashboard to keep citizens informed about pavement conditions, construction, and safety and other metrics has launched in Arkansas. According to the Arkansas Department of Transportation, the dashboard features gauges showing bridge conditions, interstate conditions, and national highway condition ratings, along with the evaluation process and what each rating means. The dashboard also includes the latest roadway safety data and an interactive map of construction jobs across the state. The Transportation Performance Dashboard can be accessed via the Arkansas DOT's website at ardot.gov/performance. Wyoming's Department of Transportation is working on widening access to road closure data. According to a press release, when snow, high winds, and other severe weather conditions require the Wyoming DOT to close Interstate 80, conditions on secondary roads are often even more dangerous. However, it's those secondary roads that motorists and commercial vehicles are typically rerouted to. The department says it's now working to share road closure data directly with Google and other navigation companies and hopes to improve safety and facilitate the efficient movement of freight. This effort comes at a time when road closure data is especially critical. March and April are historically the state's snowiest months. The Arkansas Department of Transportation will kick off National Work Zone Awareness Week on Monday. An event and announcement are expected to come at the kickoff, where Arkansas DOT says it will unveil a special project the agency is embarking on with the help of the Arkansas Good Roads Foundation and other industry partners. Work Zone Awareness Week is a national safety campaign observed each spring, traditionally at the start of construction season, to encourage safe driving through highway work zones across the country. This year it will be the week of April 15th through the 19th. And finally, the Florida Highway Patrol is reporting an attempted theft. UPI reports that security footage was posted from the FHP showing a hungry bear attempting to break into a parked patrol car. The video shows the culprit hunting for snacks. However, the doors of the car were all locked. Florida wildlife officials recommend keeping car doors locked while parked and keeping vehicles free of any food or trash that could attract the animals. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Ashley Blackford.
Thanks, Ashley. Coming up next, as you know all too well, truck parking availability can vary widely depending on the area you're in, especially in big cities where it's getting even harder to find a spot with more cities putting truck parking bans into place. We enter the parking zone next with Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine. Landline Now is back right after this.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Control your toll costs and eliminate tolling headaches with Prepass Tolls. Prepass Tolls means toll volume discounts. Just one invoice for all tolls and fewer violations. Call 877-878-5970 or go to prepass.com.
Ready to make more money? Use a better load board. For a limited time, get 50% off TruckStop Load Board Pro. Just go to truckstop.com/go and enter promo code READY2024 when you purchase Load Board Pro.
A blank space on many maps with the distance between parking spaces seemingly as great as infinity. It is the boundary that separates safety and security from the dangers of the road, the space between electronic signs and a place in which to rest. It is not a dimension of the imagination, but instead the reality faced by truck drivers every single day. It is a place we call the parking zone. Here are your guides for this journey into parking news, good and bad, Scott Thompson and Tyson Fisher.
Thanks, Mark. Scott here, Tyson over there. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for coming, as always. We always learn something every time you do stop by. We're going to start with a couple of stories here out of the Lone Star State, and neither are particularly encouraging, Tyson, but we've got to talk about them anyway. We've got one big city considering a truck parking ban, and we've got another one that's already done it, it looks like. Walk us through what's going on here in Texas.
Yeah, so let's start in San Antonio, Texas. So what's happened there? So right now, let's just talk about the current law. The current law in San Antonio, it bans truck parking in residential districts, which is a common law across the states,
Sure.
when it comes to local ordinances. Just this past September, though, the city proposed a new ordinance basically prohibiting truck parking on non-residential streets between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. That's pretty much the same ordinance that Houston has right now, so kind of modeling itself after that. So that was in September. Just this past month in March, the city, they revised that proposal. It still bans truck parking, but this time it narrowed the scope. So it'd be within 1,000 feet of any residential area rather than just the city itself, in large. So 1,000 feet within any residential area between midnight and 6 a.m. So it extends the hours, so not good. But again, it limits the geographical space by which the trucks would be banned. So kind of put in perspective, the current truck ban affects 210 square miles. The September ban proposal would have included 511 square miles. The current proposal is 401 square miles. I know it's kind of confusing.
Yeah.
So the point is there was some compromise here, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that San Antonio did reach out to trucking stakeholders to kind of get their perspective on the matter. And so I think based on those talks with trucking companies and other stakeholders, they kind of came to the conclusion, it's like, all right, we can reach a somewhat compromise. So again, it still looks like it's going to happen. The city council still needs to approve it. I think right now the current projection is that once passed, this could go into effect as soon as October. So kind of plan for a limited overnight truck parking in San Antonio.
Well, and the good thing, too, I think there in San Antonio, as you mentioned, they're listening to truck drivers and their concerns. They're also recognizing that if they're going to, put an all-out ban for trucks on these particular streets, those trucks that are there now are going to have to find another location.
Right.
Those discussions are being had in San Antonio as well. So they're at least talking about the idea of having other places for them to go, right?
Right, yeah. So again, these discussions are including all aspects of the truck parking. So yeah, they're looking for other places, and they're right now we're talking about it, but it won't go into effect till at least October.
Okay.
So in addition to that, we're giving truckers plenty of time to plan accordingly. So we'll see how the final proposal works out.
There you go. I mentioned the other city there in Texas that actually has moved ahead with an ordinance related to parking. Yep. That city is College Station. What is going on there, and what effect is it having on people?
Sure. So, like San Antonio, College Station had a ban on truck parking on residential streets, which was actually on the street-by-street basis. The new ordinance that just passed in College Station, it essentially bans truck parking in the city in its entirety. So basically, they had received complaints, and then rather than just do it street-by-street basis, having to amend that ordinance, often, they basically just said, screw it, just a blanket
get out of here
truck parking ban. It's worth noting that the ordinance, it barely passed with a 4-3 vote. So there was some, opposition within the city, including the mayor himself said wasn't all for it. But, majority rules. Something that's worth noting that I found interesting. So from January 2022 to March 2024, so 2-year period, the city received only 37 complaints and issued 44 warnings and 12 citations, which really isn't that much considering that San Antonio is the 7th largest city by population in the U.S. So regardless, the city kind of decided that they have a problem, and this is how they're going to deal with it. They did reach out to stakeholders like San Antonio. So again, they decided that even though it passed just recently, they're not going to enforce it until October. So they want truckers to have plenty of time to plan accordingly. Again, not a good situation, but at least they're giving some notice at that.
Yeah, and again, this has been the trend, I think, in recent years. We've seen more and more big cities do this. Minneapolis comes to mind. They are putting down the law there and essentially telling truck drivers to move on. But again, if those conversations continue and they do find alternate places, that is at least, something that we could swallow a little bit there, but we'll see how that goes there in College Station. Let's move over to Plano here, not Plano, Texas, but Plano, Illinois.
Correct.
Where there is some, more bad news for truck drivers looking for a place to park there as well. Yeah. Tyson, all sorts of bad news here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll get to the good stuff.
Okay,
but really, pretty much same thing. Same situation, same thing, different city, different
rinse
state.
And repeat.
Yeah. This one was a unanimous decision by the city council. Just long story short, vehicles weighing more than 16,000 pounds cannot park on any public street, highway, or parkway unless engaging in commercial activities. So unless you're loading or unloading, can't park. Fines vary from $55 to the first offense to $250 for third and subsequent offenses. So I've seen larger fines. This is kind of like middle of the road fines.
Sure.
So some truckers might find it worth it. I don't suggest doing that.
Yeah.
But as far as fines go, it could be worse. They don't give truckers that much time, so by the time this airs, the ordinance is already being enforced. The local police department said that they were going to have a social media awareness campaign for 2 weeks, and that was it. That was about the
all right.
extent of it. Another thing real quick I want to bring up is that RVs, on the other hand, are allowed to park pretty much anywhere for up to 48 hours. The only problem I have with that is sometimes RVs can be much larger than, just a Class 8 tractor, without the trailer, of course.
Right.
And so if the issue we're dealing here is with the obstruction of the view of traffic, to have a large RV obstruct that view for 2 straight days, that poses a safety risk. And so if we are setting these rules and regulations and ordinances in the name of safety, we need to, in my opinion, be a little bit more consistent in how we do that. Otherwise, you're kind of undermining the objective of the ordinance. So just my little 2 cents on that.
Absolutely, yeah. You mentioned the good news. Let's get to that here. Starting, I guess we're going back to Texas now.
Yeah.
Where we've got some new rest stops going in near Wichita Falls in the northern part of the state.
Yeah, so, you got Texas municipalities doing some not so good things. The state government, on the other hand, doing good things. So, there are 2 rest areas off US 287, just west of Iowa Park, which is outside of Wichita Falls. So, anyway, make a long story short here, $5.4 million contract to add 10 new truck parking spaces in a northbound rest area and 16 truck parking spots in the southbound rest area. So, In addition to that, the other amenities include, restrooms, of course, but security surveillance, better lighting, vending machine, storm shelter. I mean, it's your basic rest area with the essential, amenities. But an emphasis on truck parking and then safety features. So it's good to see, the state of Texas kind of dive into that.
Yeah, moving in the right direction there. Speaking of which, Montana also investing in more truck parking, it looks like?
Similar situations. So the Montana DOT just completed a new rest area called the Headwaters Rest Area. And coincidentally, this is also located on US 287, just like the Texas rest area we talked about. So just a little coincidence right there.
For your trivia night there.
Right.
Yeah, there you go.
But specifically, it's located on US 287 near the Interstate 90 interchange. If I remember right, that's right by Three Forks.
Yep.
So anyway, the rest area is actually emphasizing truck parking. There's going to be 35 truck parking rest areas versus only 22 passenger vehicle parking spaces. So really, putting the focus on the commercial vehicle traffic that's coming through in that part of the U.S. highway. Again, like the Texas DOT rest areas, an emphasis on safety, LED lighting covering pretty much all of the parking area. Also, I found this kind of interesting. It's going to have a license plate cameras to capture data at the entrance and exit, which I thought was a very odd amenity to be included there. Also, a first-of-its-kind law enforcement office that will be used by the Sheriff's Office, the State Highway Patrol, and the Montana DOT Motor Carrier Services, which I understand might rub some truckers the wrong way.
Yeah, that might make people a little bit nervous there. Yeah.
But to Montana DOT's credit, they claim that it has not experienced noticeable crime activities at its rest areas. So there is an emphasis on safety at these rest areas.
Yeah, I can see that, and if that's the case, that's obviously a positive. If it's enforcement, then things start getting a little hairy there. But we'll see how it goes. But again, not to take away the good news there. The good news is that we've got extra truck parking there in that area, which is needed everywhere, obviously. Let's move quickly here through a couple more stories that you've been following here. Mississippi looks like they're considering overnight parking at way stations.
Yeah, so currently, didn't know this, Mississippi has a policy that bans overnight parking at scale facilities. So in response to that, State House Representative Jerry Turner, he's basically encouraging the Mississippi DOT to drop that policy. And the thing is, that idea is actually being backed by the state DOT's Northern District Transportation Commissioner, John Caldwell. So basically, what the Transportation Commissioner basically said that the DOT can end this ban on truck parking without the need for legislation. So what's happening right now is that the Mississippi DOT, they're looking into it. Is the best way I can phrase it. They're kind of like weighing the pros and the cons. And so House Rep Jerry Turner, he's kind of overseeing this, but there's been some assurances by the DOT that yes, this is a good idea to drop this stupid truck parking ban for the most part.
Yeah, there you go.
They agree.
From Montana and Mississippi to one more M state here, Minnesota. The DOT there funding a number of projects. Looks like truck parking is in their crosshairs as well.
Yeah, so Minnesota DOT just announced a round of funding worth $80 million. So among the more than a dozen projects includes 2 truck parking expansion projects. So what we're about to see is expanded parking at the Interstate 94 infield rest area, and then more truck parking on the Interstate 94 Big Spunk Lake rest area. So more emphasis on truck parking in Montana, and the pattern we're seeing here is state DOTs are putting in the money and the efforts to address truck parking. Not so much at the municipality level, but the state DOTs for sure recognize the problem and are funding it for the most part.
Every little bit helps. Tyson, any last thoughts here before we let you go?
Yeah, that was basically what I wanted to point out is this that when it comes to truck parking at the government level, we're seeing positive action at the state and federal level and more regressive action at the local level. So I just want to see the states kind of, put an emphasis on the local municipality or the governments to, let's do something about this.
Yeah, put a little pressure on them for sure. Tyson, pleasure as always. Check out your work at landline.media, every issue of the magazine itself. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back right after this.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
Firestone tires are for more of everything. With more durability for more miles and more confidence in your fleet. Firestone's tested tires help fleets save with value where it matters most. Find your local Firestone dealer today at firestonetire.com/dealer.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibratech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibratechtvd.com. It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. Has your senator or congressman made you happy lately? Did the truck stop make you kind of sad? When they do either one, here at Landline, we have a special way of responding.
Ew.
We call it Roses and Razzberries. Staff writer S.J. Munoz keeps track of such things for Landline Magazine and for our program. S.J. is here now with the good, the bad, and the ugly from recent news.
Hello, we are back with another edition of Roses and Razzberries. S.J. Munoz, Ryan Witkowski, and Tyson Fisher here. Looks like we all made it through that solar eclipse. You guys, the eyes still, a little bit of blurry, some spots there. Are we doing okay?
I looked right at it.
Oh, so you're here to tell about it. So that's a good sign. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with those glasses anymore. Apparently, we're supposed to donate them and send them off to Africa or something. They have an eclipse coming up in a couple of years.
Yeah, I believe it's paying it forward there, so to speak. Passing it to the
went out
next,
and looked up at the sun a couple of
so
times.
So Africa's going to get glasses and Purdue championships.
Yes. That'll be on the wish list down there. And we just want to remind you, as always, as we get going here, if you do have an idea for a rose or a raspberry, please send them to roses@landlinemag.com. And just, by the looks of it, I think we're going to kind of be like the Sour Patch Kids here today. We're going to start our sour, then we're going to go a little sweet. So Ryan, why don't you get us started with that sour?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit raspberry heavy this week. But raspberries going out to the British Columbia Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. I've been following the story since December when they increased fine amounts for infrastructure crashes, so bridge and overpass strikes. They increased those fines back in December to basically the highest amounts that their legislation would allow at that time. Despite that, though, over the last 3 or 4 months, it hasn't actually equated to less bridge strikes. As a matter of fact, they're on pace right now to equal the total of 2022 and 2023 alone just this year.
So something's not correlating here.
Clearly it's trending in the wrong direction. And so what is their reaction to it trending in the wrong direction? Well, let's just make those fines even higher. Well, they raised those fines higher on March 14th. Now, if you strike a bridge or overpass in British Columbia, you could be facing up to $100,000 in fines or up to 18 months in prison. Now, the thing that's wild to me about this is they did put a release out on March 12th that basically it said these are proposed changes. But the ministry never bothered to really follow up and say, hey, these went into effect. Those went into effect, and they, the legislative process in Canada apparently moves so much quicker than it does here in the U.S. It took 2 days for those proposed changes to go into force in Canada. And so the issue I had is that they didn't tell anybody. And so I circled back with the ministry. I asked them about it. I said, hey, when did this happen? They said it's March 14th. Here's the announcement. And they sent me the announcement from 2 days earlier that called it proposed changes. I get what they were trying to say, and I understand that maybe my knowledge of the legislative process in Canada is just a little lacking. But for something to go from proposed to being a law within 48 hours is just absolutely crazy to me. The ministry did tell me that they thought the changes were, quote, widely publicized, and they also worked with the British Columbia Trucking Association to alert its members. But if you go to their websites, All of that information still says the changes were proposed. They were all done 2 days prior to the actual changes taking force. And so they never really did a good job of doing it. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm old-fashioned in this way that, like, I think if you're going to make sweeping changes, you should tell people about it. But who knows?
Yeah, I'm kind of in that boat.
Well, and especially when you're talking of, these, kind of incredible fines on top of everything, or even, like you said, prison. I mean, we get that. We know the bridge, in this country, the bridges are in bad shape, and we can't have, people driving around just running into them at the same time. There's no, the punishment isn't, diverting the crime, so to speak, it's not helping. So just to double on that and then just kind of try to slip it past the goalie on top of that, obviously it's a complicated situation.
That's a good hockey reference. I like that. Apparently you got to keep your stick on the ice.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's a little bit of maybe some high sticks and some, we need some penalty box time for icing or something going on here.
As it turns out, though, high fines aren't deterring people from crashing into bridges. I don't think it's something they're setting out to do either.
You can't fix stupid, because a lot of these are being done because some bad truckers are using non-commercial GPS devices. That's what's happening. So yeah, $100,000 fines again. That's just it's an act of
18
stupidity.
months in prison, bro. Come on.
Prison. Not gonna fix some of the bad actors out there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this can be complicated too when you talk about signage and then just the clearances. But obviously we've kind of touched on this enough. But it's a complicated matter, but definitely not the way to handle it. And Tyson, I guess you got some more raspberries to come at us here.
I do. So we have raspberries to certain quote-unquote safety groups for erroneously using the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration's latest crash data to essentially call for more unproven regulations against truckers. So recently, NHTSA released data that shows that traffic fatalities overall went down in 2022. That's great. However, fatalities involving large trucks unfortunately went up. So just based on that information, one safety group is urging lawmakers to do the following, right? They want to require automatic emergency braking on all commercial vehicles. They want to expedite the speed limiter rulemaking process. They also want to require side underride guards on all commercial vehicles, and they want to raise commercial motor carrier minimum insurance requirements. Basically, they're checking off all the boxes of the stuff that truckers have saying
no. Okay,
so they're going all in, so to yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple points here. Number one, all of those proposed regulations I just mentioned have no proven correlation with safety. So like AEBs and speed limiters, they may actually make the roadways more dangerous. Underride crashes are relatively rare and the benefit-cost ratio doesn't add up. And as far as minimum insurance increases, the vast majority of crash lawsuits involving large trucks are covered by the current minimum insurance requirements. So there's no correlation with safety. The second thing I want to point out is that safety groups are completely ignoring who is at fault in these crashes. So that NHTSA data does not indicate fault. However, nearly every study that has looked into that has found that the passenger vehicle was at fault at least 75% of the time, up to 85 and 90% in some studies. And the last thing I want to mention here is that crash data for large trucks includes everything from large pickups like your Ford F-350 to Class 8 tractors, including non-commercial vehicles. So there are relatively large increases in Class 3, 5, and 6 trucks compared to Class 8 trucks. So there's a lot of – the point I'm trying to make here is that there's a lot of other factors other than just the raw this is how many fatalities there were in this given year. And when we're calling for burdensome regulations, you have to do a deep dive into the data. You have to account for a variety of factors. And unfortunately, these safety groups aren't doing that, and it can cause problems later down the road.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's almost like every other day there's a new study coming out on some type of topic, and you can take it at, very vague and general numbers and just at face value. But like you said, with these, things that are going to affect the whole industry, there definitely needs to be more than just of 75% and that's it and let's go with it. Like you need to really dig in and kind of make sure it's worth the while there. And
I can't say I'm entirely surprised at the cherry picking. I mean, we've saw with the side underride guard committee that a lot of that was kind of an already predetermined thing. So I think when you look at it, they go, these are the things we want. How can we make these numbers fit our narrative.
That's a nice way to
We
just
make this
push it
work.
along. Yeah. Speaking of slipping it past the goalie, there may be another case there. Some more raspberries coming at us, though, Ryan, huh?
That's right. And again, we go back
Wait,
to
what do you got
America's
against Canada? What?
I don't know what was going on in Canada. I thought they were supposed to be polite up there, but apparently a couple of hosers were at it. These teenagers in Ontario, kids these days, right? Ontario police recently responding to a call about rocks being thrown at vehicles from an overpass. One of these rocks actually shattered a semi's window. Police were able to identify two 14-year-olds as the rock-throwing suspects. They were both arrested and charged with mischief, which seems like a blanket term.
Speaking of vague,
The Ontario Provincial Police saying, quote, what may seem like a harmless prank can quickly escalate into a life-threatening situation, not just for the drivers and passengers, but also for the perpetrators themselves. And it was a couple months ago, I covered a story about a gallon of milk being thrown at a semi in Kansas. And I just hearing the guy talk about the incident like the seconds afterwards, it sounded legitimately terrifying. So, look, I don't think I need to tell any of those listening that, this is obviously a huge safety concern, but, I don't understand what goes through people's minds when they're just chucking things off of overpasses trying to have fun. But for the love of God, please don't do that.
Yeah, there's plenty of other fun to be had.
I did discover, though, and, I guess silver linings here, the Ontario Provincial Police, they actually go by OPP. So
it's a throwback for you.
It makes me feel like they've definitely asked people if they're down with them.
All right, after that one, let's go ahead and maybe try to sneak in a few feel-good topics here, because that's enough to kind of make your gut turn there, that last story.
I would give roses to everyone that's involved with the Wall That Heals exhibit. So, for those of you who are not in the know, the Wall That Heals is a traveling replica of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. I mean, it is pretty close to the actual wall. It's a 3/4 scale model, so it's 375 feet long, 7.5 feet high at its peak. The exhibit includes like 140 panels on aluminum frames. It's illuminated by this really cool LED lighting. Needless to say, this massive display requires a truck to haul it. And that truck is actually kind of similar to OOIDA's tour truck in that it serves as this mobile education center. So unlike OOIDA's tour truck, there's no dedicated driver. So the Wall That Heals, it's made possible by donations, sponsors, and volunteers, including truck drivers that volunteer to haul the trailer from one stop to the next. So anyways, 15 miles that it's traveling this year, 31 different communities. And in fact, actually, there's an OOIDA board member who will be one of the volunteer drivers this year, which, SJ, if I remember correctly, you wrote a story about said driver for the upcoming May issue of Landline Magazine. So, have that to look forward to.
Yeah, I got a chance to speak with, you said board member, Terry Button there up in the Northeast area, and he's actually picking it up in Massachusetts and driving it back to upstate New York there where they'll have the ceremony. It's, just speaking to him, it's very emotional for a lot of the people involved. It's kind of like one of those experiences where he kind of just felt like he had to be a part of it, and is the least he could do to kind of give back to the veterans who, in his words, and I think a lot of people feel that sentiment, are often overlooked, especially with a war like Vietnam. And we know there's a lot of layers to that story.
15,000 miles, by the way, Tyson. You said 15 miles, which seems slightly less impressive. But we'll just clean that one up. But
no, I make sure to get it right. But
I just know working with OOIDA every year with Truckers for Troops and things like that, like there's such a connection between military service and the trucking community, and it's always cool to see these kind of stories because you're right, like these guys are going out of their way, giving up their time and their money that they could be spent, padding their bank accounts, and now they're, out here doing this for a good cause. So it really does show how much it means to them.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned it's a volunteer type thing, and a lot of them giving up their trucks, their time, like you said, time is money. We know that. So we're about out of time here, but I think we got time for one more rose because we did start off kind of sour, like I said. So let's go ahead and finish on sweet.
Yeah, let me give some roses out to ATRI for launching this survey on detention time. The detention time survey launched by ATRI aims to document, quote, the widespread negative consequences of driver detention for carriers, truck drivers, shippers, and the economy as a whole. I think anybody listening knows detention time, not a great thing. OOIDA Foundation actually released their 2023 survey recently and found that the average respondent spent a combined 14.3 hours per week loading and unloading. I could not imagine, spending...
Just sitting and waiting.
A fifth of my time available, sitting and waiting and not getting paid. Amazing. Atri did say that over 250 truckers completed that survey at MATS, but you can go online and check that out. I think it's truckingresearch.org is their website. The online version is going to be available through April 26th, so get in there and get your opinion heard.
I know we just mentioned kind of how the studies come out left and right and all this stuff, but it is important that, you have to let your voice be heard, especially, on certain matters that really affect your daily day-to-day business. So we just want to kind of encourage everybody to do that. Looks like we're out of time for this edition of Roses and Razzberries. For Tyson Fisher and Ryan Witkowski, I'm SJ Munoz. Landline Now will be back after this commercial break.
Capital Reman, your leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Let us help you avoid costly downtime and repairs by visiting capitalreman.com today. Use code OOIDA10 to receive your member benefits.
Get the most power performance out of your rig with Howe's Diesel Defender. It provides maximum lubricity and contains specialized IDX4 detergent to clean and prevent deposits and safely removes harmful water. Visit HowesProducts.com for more information.
Attention professional drivers, do you owe money to the IRS? Integrity Tax Relief Group frees drivers from IRS trouble. Call for help now, 855-976-4291. That's 855-976-4291.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Thanks for sticking around. We'll close things out today on Landline Now by taking a quick peek into the scary underworld of artificial intelligence. You may have seen some of the news out there about AI deepfakes. Well, that's just the start. The technology is being used by fraudsters in a number of ways, and joining us to break down how to protect yourself are Aaron Phillips and Tim Storhoff of OOIDA's IT department. Tim, Aaron, good to see you.
Thanks for having us. Absolutely, thank you.
So I'm curious, you actually picked this topic that we're talking about today. What brought it on your radar? Why did you want to talk about it with people out there and the importance of it?
Well, with all the advancements that have been made in the last few months, really, for me personally, more of the visual side of things. Maybe listeners are familiar with the art AI bots that have been made by various companies. And at the beginning, they weren't, it was like, oh, this is cool. It kind of looks like the thing you typed in, and you can kind of see where it's going with it. Now we're really getting to a point where the visuals are quite real looking, even if they're still a little bit wonky in certain areas. And it's not even just pictures. We're getting to the point where videos can be fully generated and look pretty convincing. And so... And even if it's just some cherry-picked examples to make really, really scary-looking stuff, the fact that it's happened so quickly, the exponential growth of it, you can still kind of tell at this point.
It won't be long before
it won't be long before you really can't tell just by looking at it for you really have to get in there and scrutinize everything.
Yeah, which is scary. I mean, you can have a politician essentially saying whatever you want them to say, and that goes out on social media and confuses a whole bunch of people, and they think this person said this thing when in fact they didn't. There's all sorts of scary scenarios that come from this idea, and as you mentioned there, this has really come on so quickly. It's only been over the past, year, I think, since people even started thinking about AI, and here we are. And as you said, I think the technology is getting better and better very, very quickly. We're kind of focused here on the fraudsters and protecting yourself. And you mentioned there, Aaron, that it can be difficult to tell what's real and what isn't. They're also using this technology, the bad guys out there. They're always going to figure out some way to use it for their benefit.
Yep, exactly.
They're using it in a number of ways already to, basically scam people. Can you talk a little bit about those things, aside from just the videos, which, could be harmful, but there's a whole bunch of other things out there as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was an article that came out from Hong Kong, basically talked about how this upper management employee actually got an email asking to transfer, $25 million or something. Yeah, crazy amount from the company to this other company. And he didn't think anything of it because it was just an email. But then later on, there was an actual video chat meeting with several other employees that he knows. And he thought that everything was all good and fine. And okay, well, everyone's...
Transferred the money.
Yep, he transferred the money. But these people were deep-faked. These people were AI deep-fake, and the entire meeting was just a sham.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money.
Mhm.
And obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking to people out there. They probably don't have $25 million to forward. I certainly do not.
Right.
And if you do, great for you. Good job. But that's a thing that I think people, it's easy to, kind of push off an email that you get as junk. You can usually maybe kind of figure out what's what there. But if you're talking about a video phone call or a phone call in general, and I know that they are taking people's voices, like family members, and calling people and fooling them. I guess the question is, if you can fool somebody into sending $25 million out using that technology, folks like us, that they're just asking for whatever, it would be easy to be fake. What can we do? What should we be looking for when it comes to these things, especially people who are getting, truck drivers who are getting phone calls and emails from a whole bunch of people claiming to be a bunch of people? What can they do? What should they be looking out for?
Just verifying everything possible with people
Absolutely.
Just reputation, where we seem to be going back to a point where like in-person reputation things are very, very much more important than online, because online can be faked. So it's better to be, really look at the situation. Oftentimes fraudsters will have sort of an artificial sense of urgency that they'll try and create, where they you got to do this now. You got to do this now. It's important. Your
trying to scare you.
Your livelihood's on the line. We'll sue you. You'll go to jail. Whatever. And so it's just try to get the picture of, does this actually add up? Does this make sense? Just from a real life perspective, is this a thing that would actually happen? Does this seem a little bit insane? And if it does, talk to people and sort of bounce it off them. Does this make sense to you? Have you heard of this? Does this, ring any bells?
That's right.
Yeah, take a beat, essentially, if that's the case.
Yeah, just back off, reassess.
And especially if they're asking for money. I mean, I think that should be the first tip there.
And I'd just like to add to that also that, voices obviously can be, faked.
Yeah, you can get an app to clone your voice now.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And the best way is to either end that phone call and call your loved one, directly, or have a safe word or a warning word that only you and your group or your family know.
That's smart.
Yeah.
If you're a business, having set procedures with employees is important.
We were talking before just about the potential of AI, and there's a lot of potential. We should emphasize that this has the potential to do a lot of good. But again, anytime you've got a new technology or a new thing out there, the potential for bad actors to do something bad grows as well.
Yes.
And I think that's a big concern here, because we don't know. This is truly uncharted territory. And I know regulators are kind of looking at this just from your perspective, because I know you all follow this obviously pretty closely. Are we going to get to a point where, the government or some entity actually does some oversight of this technology? Because we saw with social media how they just kind of let them do whatever they wanted. And we see where we're at now with, again, great things about social media, also some really bad things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
AI has the potential to just blow that out of the water. I mean, just from your perspective, do you see any possibility for any kind of regulation or oversight of AI as we move forward here? Should that even be done, do you think?
I mean, I think we'll have to. We're already seeing some, especially with social media, video platforms like YouTube and TikTok, they already have sort of self-assignment. If you have a video that's using generative AI, you can tag it as that, and obviously that's assuming that you're going to be good and do things the proper way. But the idea is if you have enough honest people tagging their videos properly, then it can be training data for another AI to become the AI detection bot, basically, and be able to automatically flag future videos that are not put up honestly.
So we're depending on the social media companies to kind of police themselves here, which is, I think, what got us into the mess with social media companies in the first place. But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating topic. Final advice here as we wrap things up really quick is just to, again, just verify, be very careful, because this new stuff does look very real.
Yeah,
and it's only going to look even more real.
And it's so accessible. Like I could do this myself.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that, though.
Yeah, don't do that, though.
All right, Aaron. Hey, Tim, always a great conversation when we have you. We really do appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's our show for today. We've got another one coming tomorrow, but for news and analysis from the trucking industry in the meantime, head on over to landline.media for all the latest. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
chrome.
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.